Welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast, brought to you by TournamentPokerEdge.com, the only podcast dedicated exclusively to poker tournament strategy. Now here's your host, Clayton Fletcher.
Hello once again, everybody, and welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast. I'm your host, Clayton Fletcher, here in New York City, although I have been spending quite a bit of time in nearby New Jersey, and I have some updates on that for those who might be interested. But before I get into any of those updates, I'm going to let you guys know that I'm not alone. This week we actually have someone who I believe needs no introduction on this podcast, since he's actually the guy who started it, as well as Tournament Poker Edge itself. We know him. He's your friend. Killingbird himself is with us. Derek Tenbush, how are you, sir?
Clayton, I am doing phenomenally, and I hope the same for you, sir.
Yeah, everything's good. As I mentioned, I've been in Jersey. Of course, we all celebrated my victory in the $100 buy-in tournament where I got first place. I actually made that final table of that same tournament again 5 days later, and this time got second place, but didn't tweet about it because I only won second place. And I was like, yeah, it's a letdown. It's a letdown. It just goes to my, how messed up my thinking is. Like, if I didn't win it, I'm not going to tell everybody about it.
The way I've been running, I would tweet every final table, because there haven't been many of those recently.
I'm sorry to hear that. I stopped in on your stream the other night. Everybody knows that you are an ACR stormer, and that you pretty much every Tuesday, right? You do your home game, as you call it. Yep, how's that been going?
It's been going really good. I've actually I kind of made a commitment. Well, two things actually are going on this month. I guess I'll start with the volume part first, which is basically that I decided to commit to streaming every day this month, even if that meant only sitting down for a couple hours and maybe playing like some Blitz Cash or Sit and Goes or Jackpots or maybe some Hyper Turbos or whatever. So I've managed to do pretty well with that. I've only missed one day, and it was basically just because I was feeling generally under the weather. Not from any airborne viruses or anything, just from a few too many cocktails the evening before.
It's a shame we have to specify that now, isn't it? It's like anytime anyone's even a little bit sick, it's like, don't worry, I don't have the deadly disease that's going around. It's just I drank too much last night. I'm fine. Yeah.
I go to the grocery store with my wife or something, and I like cough a little, and she just looks at me like, "What are you doing?
What are you doing?" Everyone's looking at us. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, sorry, I couldn't hold it in. So that's been part of it. So it's been cool. I just wanted to try to get a little more volume in and sort of take advantage of, I guess, the last, hopefully the end of this whole lockdown quarantine thing. But it doesn't seem like that's really the case after all. But the other thing that I decided to do is I got invited by a few of other ACR stormers and Twitch streamers to participate in a bankroll challenge. Which we did a little differently. A lot of times people will do a bankroll challenge where they say, like, okay, I'm going to start with $10 and try to run it up to 1,000, or I'm going to start with 0 and just play free rolls and try to get my bankroll to 1,000 or whatever. We did it a little bit differently in that we all just started with $1,000, and we kind of had to force ourselves to practice good bankroll management and see how high we could spin up that bankroll, and whoever has the highest bankroll at the end of the month wins. So I kind of have these two sort of simultaneous goals / challenges going on that are kind of keeping me motivated to play and stuff. Unfortunately, we haven't really run very well. We haven't run bad. In fact, we started with $1,000. I think my bankroll is now at $989 or something like that.
Okay, so yeah.
It's kind of like I swung up, I took an early lead, and then I just have slowly sort of, min cash here, min cash there, kind of tapering my way back down to break even. So I'm reaching the point of the challenge where I have to make a decision. Like, do I start taking bigger shots and kind of, fading away from my early bankroll strategy? Because early on in the challenge, it was I'm going to play, super conservative buy-in levels, try to play smaller fields, mix in some sit and goes and stuff to try to minimize variance. But it's kind of getting to that point now where I have to like start to re-strategize and maybe take some shots. So the next 2 weeks are going to be interesting in that regard.
Now, is there anything to stop you from just kind of going all in with this bankroll challenge? Like, did you guys set like any sort of parameters for the challenge, or is it just, let's
No.
see if we can practice good bankroll management? Because to me, the thing is, if I'm trying to win a contest, I might actually practice the opposite of bankroll management. Because
Right.
if I can run up to 20,000 by playing a tournament I shouldn't be playing with $1,000 bankroll, then sometimes that sort of thing can reward bad behavior. Is it more just on the honor system or what?
Yeah, it was more on the honor system. The idea definitely got passed around like, oh, well, maybe I should just fire 10 109s and hope to bank one for like 5K and I'll win this thing, But I think everybody definitely some people were more aggressive than me. I was probably in fact, I might have been the most conservative because I felt like I could just win with volume. But that obviously hasn't completely worked out. But there are other people who have, who are down in like $500-$600 range bankroll wise. So I am ahead of some people.
Yeah, for sure. 989 is not in last place. Absolutely. Yeah.
But yeah, I think, and that's why I would say I need to rethink the strategy because it's like, do I continue to pretend as though this is my be all end all bankroll? Even say it's the last day and I have $900, like I should probably just play $900 in buy-ins and go for it if I'm behind, right?
Right.
But that's not good bankroll management. So I'll probably do that, honestly, even though it does kind of, I won't say it goes away from the spirit of the challenge because the challenge was a month long. I mean, so, we're working within that parameter. So in a way, I'm just kind of pretending my poker career ends on June 31st and I won't need a bankroll after that.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, that'll be interesting to follow along with that. I wanted to get your thoughts on the, I don't know if you saw what happened in court today. As we record this on Thursday, June 18th, today there was a huge hearing in the appeals court. It was the U.S. Circuit, the first U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals, and they basically had an appeal of the decision that was made, I guess, a year and a half ago about the Wire Act. Were you following that? Did you see that?
Yeah, I was not. But I'm definitely going to do some reading up on it after we're done recording because I definitely want to see kind of if I can decipher what any of it means because I probably won't be able to be honest.
Yeah, I'm certainly not an expert myself, but just because I follow KevMath, who tweets everything and anything.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, at KevMath, absolutely essential follow for any poker player. He tweeted that this important thing was going on today. I know that no actual decision was made today, but arguments were made, and it was basically, it has to do with DraftKings wanting to operate in New Hampshire, and then somebody said they can't, and somebody else said they can, because it's a question of whether the 2018 interpretation of the Wire Act that goes all the way back to, I think, the 1960s, and that interpretation did not exclude state lotteries. So it's all this legal mumbo jumbo, but obviously it has a lot of ramifications for poker, particularly poker among states. So like right now what WSOP.com does, there's legal poker you can play in New Jersey or in Nevada, I think even in Delaware, and they're trying to add more states to that. So a lot of people are really watching, what happens in this decision. But yeah, I mean, you can read up on it. OnlinePokerReport.com did a full article about it where they kind of were updating live tweeting basically what was going on. And I was trying to follow it, but just not being a lawyer myself and not really understanding all these things. I don't understand this any better than I understand Mike Postle walking scot-free for what he did. So
yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat as you, but I do think I think a lot of things in that area are gonna come to a head over the next few years. We were talking earlier before the podcast about sort of how states might try to ram through a bunch of tax generating ideas, like everything from legalizing marijuana to sports betting to possibly poker. So I think it's going to get tested in a lot of places. And it's just going to be interesting to see what that means for, like you said, state to state poker. But who knows, maybe even something on the federal level.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things too where, if you had told me on Black Friday that it would be 9 years later and we still wouldn't have poker, I would have bet against you quite handily. So I don't know. I'm starting to lose hope, but maintaining as much as I can.
Yeah, no, back then I remember a lot of us thought it would be like maybe by the end of the year they would get it worked out and, let us get back on Poker Stars or whatever. No. I mean, it just got ugly. And, we now know that a lot of that had to do with certain casino owners being against the idea of online poker, feeling like it was impacting their bottom lines. And, who knows? I mean, I believe that the current president was opposed to online poker. Mm-hmm. Certainly, Sheldon Adelson, who owns the Venetian in Las Vegas and other properties, being against it. So that's kind of how politics works in our country. I know this isn't really a political podcast or whatever, but as it relates to online poker, there's a lot of power when you are a billionaire who owns a casino, and they kind of got what they wanted back then, and only now are these things being looked at again. So we'll see. I mean, like you, I'm very reserved as far as how much hope I will have that things will ever go back to the way they used to be. For now, I'm just grateful that I live close enough to New Jersey to participate in events. Like I've been playing the finale, they called it, the online circuit finale. I played in every major tournament that they had. There were 5 on the 5 days that I spent in New Jersey. I cashed in 3 out of the 5, nice. Which is pretty awesome, but I didn't really have any big scores, just kind of enough to stay afloat. The biggest score that I had was actually that second place in that $100 tournament that happens every day. But I don't know. I just seem to like that's my game. That one right there. Yeah. The first cash was for like 4,800, and the second one was for like 32 for second place. So I definitely saw a spike in the number of players in all the tournaments during that series, and I think there's going to be another spike, obviously beginning July 1st with the online World Series of Poker. So when they first announced, I think it was in late April, early May, they announced, okay, guys, we tried everything. We're not going to be able to have the World Series this year. We're going to beef up the online a bit and try to do the real thing in the fall. It looks to me like they said, you know what, fall's not going to happen. Let's just do it all online. And they're I think it's 85 bracelets between 2 different websites. What are your thoughts on this, Derek?
So I have like a million thoughts about it, but I'll try to break it down to just a few. And obviously on poker Twitter and stuff, people are debating if they should be giving out bracelets for online events and things like that. Maybe I'm getting old. I don't know, but I just kind of feel like they could have just taken a year off from bracelets. Do a big online series. That's cool. But I worry about a lot of things like, I don't remember who it was, but somebody tweeted out like a poll, how many accounts are you going to have to try to win a bracelet this summer? And, the answers were like 4, 3, 5. And I think it was kind of a joke.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's totally, I don't think everybody took it as a joke.
Right.
So, I worry about these kind of things, like, online crusher so-and-so, I'm not going to name any names, but online crusher so-and-so's wife won a bracelet this year. Wow, that's really impressive, And then online poker pro's uncle won one, we're going to see at least one of those happen,
Right.
And it's just a matter of who it's going to be, and it's just going to be like, really? You're just going to give out bracelets for this stuff? At the same time, I get it. I mean, the WSOP is the greatest poker tournament in the history of the world and probably always will be. And to not have it would be an incredible shame. So, it's kind of cool from an online grinder's standpoint. I think if you just like made me make a decision, like put a gun to my head and said you have to choose no bracelets or bracelets, I would just be like no bracelets.
Yeah.
It's this little. It's not like I'm strongly against it either. I'm not like this is the stupidest idea ever. But I just had this little unease about it, like this little bit of uncomfortableness in the back of my brain about it.
Interesting. And it sounds like most of that discomfort is coming from you not being convinced that people will respect the idea of one player per hand and even one player per household. But it seems to me like this happened actually in New Jersey. I wanted to go for a walk and I was down to just one tournament playing. So I had been playing on my laptop. I decided I was going to switch to my cell phone. And as soon as I logged in on my cell phone, the laptop automatically logged off. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, I could try to create more than one account, but each account, because it's all regulated so heavily, you have to share your passport or your ID of some kind. You have to have a bank account associated with your username. Like, I don't think what you're suggesting, I'm not naive enough to think it won't happen, but I don't think it's going to be easy for players to have 4 or 5 accounts going at once. I don't think that 2 accounts can log in from the same IP address. And, in New Jersey, at least, they are being very strict about that.
Yeah, you might be right. I honestly think the more common issue, which you hinted at there, would be ghosting. I think that'll actually be the most common thing to happen.
Yeah.
Somebody will get down to the final table, and then they'll get on, a call with their 3 awesome GTO poker buddies.
Right. Yeah.
And talk through spots and stuff. And I'm not trying to I don't think it's going to be half the field, or maybe probably not even 5% of the field, but it's going to be some percentage of the field.
Yeah.
And it just feels, the other issue too, when I lived in Vegas, I played on WSOP.com. The percentage of sessions that I played where I would lose my geolocation, and then it would tell me I wasn't in Las Vegas and I couldn't play anymore. And like that, it got so frustrating that I literally stopped playing on there. I would only play on America's Card Room. And I think at that time I played on Ignition too. Because it was just too frustrating. And then I'd spend 2 hours with support trying to I'm here. I'm Twitch streaming from my house in Vegas right now. You can see me.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine the frustration of being 3-handed for a bracelet or heads up for a bracelet.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, it's like, you are no longer in New Jersey.
Yeah.
Good luck, Mr. Fletcher.
Yeah. No, that's brutal. That is a still a major problem. Okay, but I feel like they've done some things to try to improve that. They have something now called Geo Comply, which is like a kind of a plug-in that goes along with your app or whatever that helps the website know that you actually are where you say you are. I mean, I feel like they're really cracking down because a huge part of what allowed them to legalize it was the government saying, okay, but no one can be outside of New Jersey or Nevada. So if anything, they're just kind of going overboard with being overprotective to make sure that people are where they say they are. Like when I'm in Jersey City, sometimes it can't confirm that I'm not in New York City because they're so close together. So I've run into that once or twice. But yeah, I remember in the earlier days, 2 or 3 years ago, WSOP.com, you just get kicked off every 10 minutes. Like, you're not in Nevada. I'm like, I'm at the Venetian right now, for God's sake.
Yeah. And I'll just stress what I said earlier. I'm definitely not in the strongly opposed category. I'm way down in the mildly opposed category.
Yeah. No.
And look, I'll be sweating it. Like it sounds like they're going to do a bunch of live broadcasts and stuff on, I'm assuming PokerGo and places like that. I'll be watching them all. I think it'll be a blast.
Absolutely.
I mean, as a poker fan, I'm very excited.
But you're not going to be playing.
Well, I don't know. So July is like, usually I'm in Vegas, June and July, or at least a good portion of it.
Yeah.
But then this year came around and it's like, obviously the World Series got canceled, and I was like, oh, well, this is great. I can spend my first birthday at home in a decade. My birthday is July 4th. And then my high school reunion is at the end of July, like the 24th, I think it is. But I honestly don't know if that's happening or not, just because of the whole COVID thing.
Sure.
So it turned into basically like the busiest month. Because I basically just cleared my schedule. I was like, oh, I guess I'm home. I can do, I can set up all these different things. So I'm debating going, because I can drive to New Jersey in about 7-8 hours. So, I could pack up my computer and just go get a hotel room somewhere and fire it up, or an Airbnb or whatever. So I'm debating going in the middle of July. I think the first event that I looked at was the Monster Stack.
You always love the Monster Stack. That is your
in this case, it just happens to fall in the right place, because it's like 3 days after my birthday. It's 4 days after my birthday. Oh, there's a Six Max the day before that. Okay, never mind. But it's during that phase, like the 8th through like the 13th or whatever. I could jump in the car, because the thing is I had already kind of like grinded out the year and created a little WSOP bankroll for myself that I was going to bring to Vegas and use for events. So I have the buy-ins sitting there waiting to be used for something. So I think what I'm going to end up doing is probably sit out the first few events, enjoy my birthday with my family, take a day or two after the birthday, and if I just feel like going, I'm just going to jump in the car and go. I don't have to book flights. I don't. There's nothing complicated about it. I just get in the car and drive for 7 hours, and I'm there. So
just a little road trip. That's it.
Yeah. I actually almost hit up all the guys that I usually stay with in Vegas. A couple of them are from the Philly area and stuff, and I was like, do you guys want to go get a house in Jersey and play this series? And then I was like, oh, wait, we're not supposed to be doing that. Like, people coming from all different parts of the country and living together in a house seems like a bad idea. So I think I would probably just go and stay by myself.
Well, I think you might have to, because I'm not sure that you would be able to have two different logins on the same IP address. I mean, maybe there's a workaround like with a hotspot or whatever, but I don't really know. I'm really talking over my own head here. I'm like the technical. I'm such a novice. Actually, my new laptop arrived today. I promised all of our listeners that after I binked that little $100 buy-in tournament a couple weeks ago, that I would get a laptop that will hopefully be capable of handling Clayton Comic on Twitch. So I'm going to start, twitching a little bit. But I just got the computer and I'm having trouble. Like, already I'm having trouble just like setting it up. I don't know what I'm doing. So it could be months before I'm actually able to stream anything.
Yeah, my wife and son bought me a new iPad for Father's Day, and they gave it to me today because it just came in the mail today.
That's nice.
And yeah, I spent about 4 hours trying to get that thing set up. And I'm like, isn't Apple supposed to be user friendly? Like, what is going on?
Yeah,
I finally got it done though.
Yeah, well, that's good. Congratulations and happy Father's Day a little early.
Yeah, thank you.
So, all right. Well, I guess it'll be to be continued. Now, if you decide to go to New Jersey and play in some of these events, would that be something that you would also stream on Twitch, or would that be?
That's a good question. I've streamed WSOP events before, like the online events they do in Vegas.
Yeah.
But I think what I would do for these, I would probably stream the early stages, and then if I were to get deep, like say in the money, I'd probably shut off the stream. A, so I could focus, and B, so that nobody can, be watching my stream. Not that they can snipe me because I'd have it on a long delay, but they can still get reads and stuff. I mean, there's going to be too many good players in these, I think, to give up any edge. So yeah. I'd rather just shut it down.
Well, if the online circuit finale, or whatever they call the thing that I just played, is any indication, there were some tables that were just hellish. I mean, one day I was sitting with Michael Martyr, Jamie Kerstetter, Jeff Gross. I mean, and just the list goes on, and it was just brutal. Ended up having a lot of hands with Jesse Silvio, one of which I mentioned last week on the podcast here. But then, like on the very same night, in the very same tournament, you would just be like, I can't believe all of these people had $300 to play this thing.
Yeah. So, I guess part of the question is, and I don't know this, like it'll be interesting, have they already started satellites for these things? Because I mean, if there's a lot of satellites running and people getting in via satellites, or I mean, it's not like these events are that expensive. I mean, there's $400 and $500 events, so you're definitely going to have a mix for sure. But I think once you get deep, it's going to certainly sway towards being better players, which makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it appears that the highest buy-in, what they're calling the high roller, is only $3,200. No, I say only, not because I don't think that's a lot of money. Of course, that's a lot of money. But for a bracelet, high rollers in Vegas would be $100,000, right? So,
when they first announced this, I was like, oh, I gotta look at the schedule, because in my head I'm wondering, are they all going to be like the same buy-ins as the live events, or are they going to be smaller? And I think they did a good job of balancing it. There's no like $100 buy-ins or anything like that. I mean, I guess the smallest is 400.
400, right?
And I think that's pretty fair. I mean, you have events like that in Vegas, during the summer, like the Giant and the Colossus and things like that. So I think starting it around there is pretty good.
Yeah.
And I don't think they could have really done a 10K main event. Because as much as people have the dream of playing the main event and they're willing to shell out 10K for it, a huge percentage of the field is not willing to do it for an online 10K.
Right. Yeah. So. It's not just the concerns that you mentioned. It's also just the entertainment value. I can tell you, I've always considered myself a live player first. Mm-hmm. And, now that I've been spending so much of the last 3 or 4 weeks playing online poker, it's like I'm definitely a live player first. I mean, this is nowhere near as much fun. It's not even close. I like it, especially when I'm at a final table and, I'm playing for all the money and everything. There is an excitement level, and it's not unenjoyable for me, but I would much rather play live poker and I think that a lot of the people that are more recreational and they buy into the $10,000 main event in Vegas because they want that experience. And I just think that staring at a screen for 10 hours is not the same experience as being at the Rio, sitting across from Daniel Negreanu, whatever,
right.
Even if that pro is on the other side of the world playing against you or something, it's not the same as being at the table. So I think they did a good job of setting up the schedule. I tend to agree with you about the bracelets. I mean, maybe they could do something else for these. Like, we're going to have a World Series of Poker online event and everybody wins a watch, a nice watch, I don't know, a Rolex or something like that. Some kind of like prestigious watch with the WSOP logo to distinguish this from, hey, I'm a bracelet winner, because you shouldn't be a bracelet winner if all you had to do is beat people in New Jersey and Nevada.
Right, right.
Winning bracelets means beating those people and the people from Lithuania and Slovenia and everywhere else where they come from all over the world to play with us. Yeah. So it's not really the same.
And I guess in this case, they probably literally can't, because we're not really letting any people in from any other countries right now, right? So.
Right, I don't think that they can. And they're having a separate series on GG Poker, which is more of a global series. I think that starts in August or something. So there's a separate thing that's going to happen after this that I don't know if by then we'll be allowed to travel. Like, I don't know what the travel restrictions are going to be, but I heard somewhere that you can't expect to go to Canada and play in that because Canada's not welcoming Americans at the moment. So
I think I just saw the extended like the border closing until July 31st, but I think that's about when that series starts, and I don't think anybody expects it to actually open then. I think it's just kind of like, oh, let's just extend it another month and then we'll wait.
Yeah, time will tell. But I guess a part of me just feels happy that there's something going on in July, because it's just been, there's no baseball, and I love baseball. The thing I look forward to the most every single year is the World Series of Poker, being there with everybody and just being a part of it. And that's not happening this year. So at least there's something. And like you said, I had money set aside too.
Yeah.
So
I mean, like I said, as a fan, I will definitely be following along, even if I don't go play. But I don't know. I have a sneaking suspicion, at the very least, I'll end up playing 2, 3, 4 events.
Yeah, I wouldn't bet against that at all. So, all right. Well, it sounds like you've been playing a lot. Do you have a hand you want to run by me?
I do.
All right.
So let's get into this.
Our strategy segment, by the way, is sponsored by TournamentPokerEdge.com.
Those guys.
Yeah, I mean, they have always been a big supporter of this podcast and a great sponsor of everything that we do. Before you do the hand, though, tell us what's happening with the website. Is there any exciting news at TPE?
Well, yes, I would say the most exciting thing is that there's a new Andrew Brokus series up because I know you and I are both huge fans of his video series.
Yeah, he's the man.
And I think this will be interesting to not only our international customers, but maybe particularly to our U.S. customers because, Andrew typically I think plays mostly live these days, but I guess like all of us, he's been kind of forced into compromising a little bit, and he's been playing on a ACR a little bit, actually. So he is doing a review of a $50 final table that he made on ACR. So there's 3 parts of that up right now. I believe it's a 5-part series in total. So for people who are trying to figure out, if when I make it to a final table of an ACR tournament, how do I win? That's how you do it.
Yeah, that's cool. I can't wait to check that out myself.
Yeah, and then something we get asked about a lot, people email us or hit us up on Twitter or whatever, and they're like, hey, do you guys have sit and go videos? And the truth is we don't have a ton of them, but we do have, one of the best sit and go scholars, for lack of a better word, Colin Moshman, who of course wrote the book literally on sit and goes. And he occasionally does sit and go videos for us. So he has a new series running, which is a live sit and go series. Part 1 of that just went up this week. So for people who are grinding the sit and go scene, that's for you.
And you can wish Colin a happy Father's Day, too.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, recently became a dad himself. All right, so why don't we... I'm assuming that the hand you're going to talk about is from a 50-cent tournament on your bankroll challenge on ACR.
Not quite that small, but it is pretty small.
Okay.
This was the 662K guaranteed.
Okay.
So, low to mid stakes, I guess. But that's what we be grinding right now. So
that's cool. I've actually played this tournament a few times myself. They run it every day. I think it has a short late reg period, which is one reason I like to play it.
I think this might be the one with 2 hours only of late reg, which
that
is
sounds right.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't like the 5-6 hour registration. I think it's enough's enough.
Yeah, I like it sometimes, but then when I guess this goes without saying, but when I only have 5-6 hours to play, it's just not really great for me. So
yeah, you're just stuck there. Or you can buy in late and then you're really gambling because you start with like 6 big blinds. So
right, exactly.
We'll see how that goes. Yeah. All right. So let's hear it.
Let's go. All right. So we are 9-handed at this table. We are starting with 44 big blinds. The big blinds the blinds are 250 and 500. And we have 21.5K. So 44 big blinds. And we are sitting in the big blind with Jack 9 offsuit.
Okay, now this is pretty early in the tournament. That's a low level for that tournament.
Yeah, relatively early.
Nowhere near the money.
No, probably like 10, 12 levels, maybe even less than that.
Yeah, I think so.
But relatively early.
Yeah, early is probably still, registration is still open, I would think, at that point.
Yep.
Yeah. All right.
All right, so it folds around to the cutoff, who has 40 big blinds, so a similar stack to us. He's running 30-22 for what it's worth, so pretty active, I would say. He min raises to 1,000.
Now, forgive my ignorance. As you know, a few weeks ago I spoke with Jason Smith trying to figure out what all these numbers mean and working with my HUD because I never really played much around with Hold'em Manager or Poker Tracker. 30 is the VPIP, 20 is the pre-flop raise, and then what is that 2 number you said?
Oh, 22. His pre-flop raise is 22%.
Oh, okay. So these are just the 2 numbers.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. His 3-bet is 7% for what it's worth. But
oh, okay. Yeah, because we did talk about 3-bet percentage being really important as well. Okay. So it's 30 VPIP, 20 pre-flop raise, and 7 3-bet. Okay, got it.
Yeah. It's also worth noting, I guess, that the cutoff is actually his most active spot. He's running 43-37 from the cutoff, which is just slightly higher than his button open, which is, kind of unusual. Like you'd almost always expect the button to be the highest opening percentage, but so he, from this position in particular, he's super active. So he raises to 1,000, folds to us in the big blind, and we have Jack 9 offsuit. Thoughts?
Okay. Well, right off the bat, we're not folding. So we can cross that one off the list. And I don't really like putting this hand in my 3-betting range, especially with this stack size. I do 3-bet pretty heavily as a blind defense, especially if I feel like my opponent is, as you say, very active from his cutoff position. So, you probably could get a lot of 3-bets through. But, just in the interest of balance, I don't see any reason to 3-bet with this hand. Like, this hand is kind of a medium strength hand, and my 3-betting from the big blind tends to be polarized. So
Sure.
if I re-raise after somebody opened from the cutoff, I'm going to have something really good like aces or kings, or something really bad like 10 deuce. I think hands like these we can just go ahead and call.
I agree with you completely. I might 3-bet Jack 9 suited here sometimes, but even that I'd probably defend most of the time. But I think Jack 9 off is definitely just a defend.
Yeah, so why would you put Jack 9 suited? Just curious, why would you sometimes 3-bet with that hand as well?
I think because at least in my mind, the fact that we're going to be out of position, I'd rather just have the ability to flop more equity, because I'm pretty much going to have to lead almost every flop. And even just the ability to have like a backdoor draw where we're just not going to flop too many draws with the Jack 9 offsuit, So I'd rather just it just seems like playability out of position is just going to be a little bit easier with suited, I think.
That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, you will flop some straight draws, some gut shots, stuff like that. But yeah, obviously having that extra, little bit more chance of flopping a draw because you're suited, as you say, even if it's just a backdoor draw, it gives you a little something to hang your hat on when you fire that C-bet, which I agree. If you're going to 3-bet, you should usually, lead almost every flop. It's hard to think of a flop that you shouldn't lead where his range, because when you take the lead in the hand by 3-betting and you don't get 4-bet, you're pretty much now expected to have the stronger range.
Right.
Overall. So that makes sense. All right, but here we just call, correct?
Correct.
All right.
So there is 27.90 in the pot now, and the flop comes King, Queen, 10, 2 spades. So
Okay.
we flop the low end of the straight.
That's a phenomenal flop for Jack 9.
It's pretty sexy. It's pretty sexy.
Yeah.
So I think it's one of these weird spots now in this hand where we just talked about the fact that, if we had 3-bet here, we're going to be betting a bunch. But the fact that we just flatted, I kind of want to lead just because I think he's going to continue with a ton of hands and he's not going to believe our lead much. But also, like, our flat pre is so weak and he's so aggressive, his stats are so aggressive that I think, by the way, his C-bet percentage is 74%. So he's C-betting 75, almost 75% of the time. And I think that number in particular makes this like a pretty easy check.
Yeah, I mean, I respect the idea of like wanting to be deceptive and, betting basically the nuts here, and, leading out with it. I understand like the impulse to do that, and I love that you would do that with such a good hand some of the time. But I feel like because we didn't take the lead pre-flop, this is a spot where I think you just check, especially against this opponent that's going to bet. And I think the plan should be to check raise because this board will hit him pretty hard too.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not going to fold a lot of those hands. Like anything with a jack. Now I know we have a jack, so it's not as likely that he does too. But he could, of course, have king jack, queen jack. Hopefully not ace jack, or we're in trouble, right? But also he could have king queen, king 10, queen 10. Like these are hands that are not just going to fold because we check raise. Even if he has something like ace queen, where he's got second pair with a gut shot, right? He's probably not going to fold to your check raise. So
yeah,
I feel
I
like
agree.
It's a good spot for a check raise.
Yeah, I think basically everything Broadway he's going to continue against a check raise on. So like ace 10, ace queen, ace king, king queen, king 10, queen 10, everything,
right.
Queen jack. So I'm glad you say that because I love it, and that's exactly what we do. He does C-bet 13.95, and we raise to 27.90, which is just a little over a min raise, it looks like.
Okay, so he put in basically half the pot, and then you just kind of clicked it back with a little change.
Yeah.
All right.
Part of me kind of wishes I'd gone bigger here, because if he has like 4 or 5 suited or 6, 8 suited, anything other than all those hands we just talked about, Broadway cards, he's just going to fold here even to the click. But if he has all those Broadway cards or sets or whatever, or maybe like ace 5 of spades because there's 2 spades on the board, like he's going to continue with all those. So I think I'd rather go to like 32 or 35 or something here.
Yeah, I mean, our hand is so strong that we should really be thinking about. When you flop a really strong hand, I tend to think about being optimistic. Like, I want my opponent to also have a really strong hand. Like you said, he's going to c-bet everything, and then he will fold a lot of that range. If he's c-betting 75%, right, he's going to fold a lot of that range to our check raise because, like you say, it's going to be 8 high, or even like a pair of 4s. Like, he's not going to go broke with a pair of 4s on this board. So forget those hands. Like, we don't have much chance of making more money from those hands no matter what we do. But when he has a very strong hand, or even a relatively strong hand like that ace-queen I mentioned before, I think we got to try to get 4 bets in to get these whole, what do you have, 40 big blinds in, right? Yeah. So that's the way we should be thinking. So I do agree that this is a bit of a sizing mistake. The hands that you're going to keep in, I can't really think of too many hands that are going to stay in for this amount that would have folded to a 3x.
Exactly. Yeah. I think we're on the same page there for sure.
Yeah. All right. But that's what we do.
Yeah. And so he does not fold. He goes ahead and calls.
Okay.
And so now there's 83-70 in the middle, and the turn is the ace of hearts. So now it is ace 10 of hearts, king queen of spades. So we still have the nut straight.
Yeah, but the bad news is there are some scenarios where we're getting free rolled now, like when he has a hand like queen jack of spades or whatever. Whatever. If he also has the straight, but he also has a flush draw with it, that happens a lot more in Omaha, but because there are 2 possible flush draws out there now, this is one of my least favorite turn cards to see.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, we also have the fact that now if he had king 10 or queen 10, like we're just going to not really be able to get stacks in against those hands now, most likely. So, it either, like you said, it either means we're getting free rolled or it just killed our action.
Yeah, it's a terrible card.
Yeah. Not always, because, maybe he has something like king, queen of hearts. Now he gets it in, although I don't know if I'd want to be up against that right now.
Yeah.
It's definitely, one of my least favorite cards for sure. So with that in mind, what are you thinking you want to do here? Because we're still going to have the best hand.
Oh,
always, or at least chopping. So I guess the question is now, are we trying to get him to fold some of those draws? Do we want to, or are we just going to basically size this to basically price him in to call with those draws and just hope he doesn't hit them?
Yeah, we have the nuts, so we're not beat at the moment, right?
Right. Yeah.
But the problem is, getting all in right now probably means that we're chopping, and it could be a lot worse. Like we're chopping, but he's got a shot at scooping, and we don't. But that doesn't really change the way I play the hand, I don't think. We still have to get it in. When you're good, you got to get it in. Because he might also be willing...
for sure, I'm definitely never folding here.
Yeah, but what's the plan, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Like, because maybe the better way to get, maybe we make this look like a real scary card to us, and then we check jam, or maybe he bets like 5K and we have 18K behind, and we get his jam in his face, and if he calls and we chop, then so be it.
Yeah. So because we're not really going to do much about it when he has a jack. Let's talk about the scenarios where he doesn't have a jack. Like a moment ago, you suggested he could have something like king, queen of hearts. We have a big pot equity advantage against king, queen of hearts right now. Mm-hmm. So king, queen of hearts has how many outs? 13, I think.
Yeah, that seems right. We do have the jack of hearts, so that removes some of it.
Okay, so there's only 12 outs with 1 card to come. So if we can get that hand to go all in against us right now with its 2 pair and a flush draw, or obviously a set, like if he has pocket aces, pocket kings, whatever, right? If those hands are willing to go broke while we have the nuts, that's a good thing for us, and we should be very happy to make that happen. And I think that maybe check jamming is one way to do that.
Yeah.
The only problem is when he really only sucks is when he has a straight with the flush draw.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Which is certainly possible here. Although he might have got that. Some of those he might have got in on the flop. Like, so for example, I don't know, ace 10 of spades or something. He might have got those in on the flop. But, I mean, I still think it's definitely a possibility. Yeah, I kind of think there's two options here. I think you can either check, probably jam, depending on his sizing. Or I think we just have to bet really small in hopes of inducing, like, if there's 8,300 in the pot. If we bet like 2,200 or something, might be too small, but enough that it makes it look like we're just trying to pot control because we don't like that card. Like a block, like it looks like we're blocker betting. I think that might work as well to get him to raise, but I think I prefer a check raise.
Yeah, the problem with the small bet is we want him to see it as a blocker bet, but he might just be so afraid. All we need is a jack. And if he doesn't have one, he's probably not going to be interested in raising. But if we check, he might say, you know what? I have a set, or I have two pair, or I have two pair with a flush draw. So let's go.
Yeah, yeah. I like that better.
Yeah, I think check shoving, or at least check raising pretty heavy is the way to go, because that's really our best chance of getting him to put in a lot of chips right now when we're sure we have the advantage.
Yeah. Plus, one of the best things in poker is getting the check raise 2 streets in a row. I mean, it's the best. Not quite as good as 3 streets, but if we're going to get 3 streets of check raises in, then we got to check raise now. So.
Yeah, the trifecta. It's very rare, extremely rare.
So we do check, and this is where I think I make a mistake. He bets 34-35. And we just call.
Yeah, that does feel like a mistake.
I don't like this at all. Like, I think we were right I think I was right that check raise or betting were the best options, but I don't think check calling is a good option at all.
Yeah, because the problem is what we do on the river. One problem is on the river, our opponent will know exactly what he has. Mm-hmm. And so it's a pretty binary decision. Like, he can call, like, if we check call here, he's only going to bet the river when he has a straight.
Yep.
And he'll also bet the river when he has a flush.
Yeah, and it can, I mean, I guess the board could even get scarier for him if there's such a thing.
Yeah.
To where he's just like, well, I guess it kind of goes back to what you said. Like, then he just knows what he had. Like, if it comes off like the 9 of spades or something and he had the heart draw, he's just going to probably give up. I mean, maybe he'll shove it in our face, but probably not.
Yeah, it's unlikely. And then, so your options on the river, having checked and called on 4th Street, now you have to lead out on the river, but your opponent will play perfectly against that lead.
Right. And that's why I think not check jamming there was a pretty big mistake. But I think if we played it that way, now I think let's get to the river, I guess.
Okay.
There's 15.2K in the middle. And the river is the queen of clubs.
And how much in the stacks?
I have 14.8. He has 12.6.
Okay, so he's got less than a pot-sized bet, and his stack is the effective stack. And now the queen pairs.
Yep. So now we got 10, king, queen, ace, queen.
Yes.
2 spades, 2 hearts. So the flushes miss. So I guess what I was going to say, but I had to divulge the river first, is if we're going to play our hand the way we played it on the turn, then now I think we just have to check again.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I mean, this is it's oddly a good card for us because our opponent could decide to use that card as a scare card, or it just gives him more options now that the board has paired. And it also gives us the option of being beat, which sucks, but all in all, I think given the way we play the turn, I want to see the board pair. If I have to call the turn, I want the board to pair on the river because now I can check and he might feel more empowered to bluff.
Right. Yeah, like it can look like all our flush draws missed or, whatever. So, as unhappy as I am with the way I played the turn, I'm pretty happy that I opted to check the river here.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
And he shoves.
Yeah, well, I mean, we have to call. It's like if you're beat, you're beat. And you will be beat.
The way we played it, Yeah, and I just think the way we played it kind of dictates what we have to do in this decision point. I mean, it kind of sucks because we're also just going to chop a lot. It's kind of like we're still getting free rolled. Like,
Yeah.
He could just have the jack or he could have a full house. So we do indeed find the call button, and he shows us the 9-10 offsuit for just bottom pair, and we take it down.
Yeah. So even though we kind of have determined that we're not happy with your play on the turn, that play actually empowered that play combined with the queen pairing the board on the river empowered him to say, well, and maybe he thinks in these terms too, he's kind of at the bottom of his range, but it's also a card that he can represent, and it does create some full houses. And now that you check raise the flop and check call the turn and check again on the river, it doesn't feel like you have a straight at all.
Right. Yeah, and if we had check raised the turn, I mean, he would have folded. So we end up getting max value. But I do think when I was watching this hand back earlier today, like, this is an important lesson, not from a strategy standpoint, but from like a study and review standpoint. It'd be really easy to just kind of like skip by this hand and go, oh man, we played that so good, we got max value, we got him to stack off with just a 10 or whatever. But it doesn't mean we played every street right. So if there's one lesson that I think could come from this, it's spend some time looking at hands and let other people look at them as well, because they might point out something that, even though it worked out great for you, was not really the best way to play it.
Yeah, I mean, I basically disagree pretty strongly with your play on 2 out of 4 streets, and you doubled up.
Yeah.
And that's what's fun about poker, is that you can absolutely butcher a hand and still double up sometimes. So that's always a good feeling.
You can play it perfect and lose, as we all know.
Yeah, many times we do that too. Yeah. Well, do you remember if you went on to cash in this thing? Because it seems like that hand gave you a pretty good stack.
Yeah, I believe I actually ended up making the final 2 tables of this tournament.
Cool.
But then things went awry, as they often do. So yeah, unfortunately, didn't end up being a great score for us. But yeah, it was a fun tournament nonetheless.
Yeah, and you know what? The thing is, those little cashes mean a lot too. Like, maybe not necessarily for your real bankroll, but if we were looking at your bankroll as being this precious final $1,000, and that if you lose this money, you'll never play poker again, right?
Right.
I mean, that's kind of the idea of a bankroll challenge, is that you're supposed to treat that money like it's your case money, right? So, even if you cashed for like $20, it's better than losing 6. And if you can do that on a consistent or relatively consistent basis, then you can at least kind of keep your bankroll in like a break even until you have your big score.
Mm-hmm.
And those little cashes do add up over time. And that's important for me to say, because it's also important for me to remember, because as everyone who's listened to this podcast more than once knows, I tend to ignore ICM, and I don't care about min caching, and I'm a bubble abuser. Like, we all know this about me, right? Yeah. So, but now that I've looked back at some of my charts, I keep very, very detailed records of all my poker, and I see how in the years where whether I had a big score in a given year or not, the difference that all the little caches that I had made is substantial. Because it's not only that you won, let's say you won $20, $25 in this $6 buy-in, right? It's also that you didn't lose 6.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I've been playing a lot of small stuff too. Like, I've been playing as low as $1.65, and I just kind of, people are like, why are you playing that? Like, you have a 1K bankroll, you don't have to play $1 tournaments. But I look at them as basically satellites and variance killers. The competition's obviously much weaker.
Sure.
And if I cash for $25, then I can go fire a $22 tournament, which I don't necessarily feel comfortable doing on the bankroll challenge. So, I don't have pride when it comes to playing low. I'll do whatever it takes to win. So
yeah, well, I think
try.
That's certainly the right approach. I mean, when I see a player that used to be a revered high stakes crusher, and I see him like in a 2-5 game in Vegas or something, and you'll hear other players whispering, "Oh man, can you believe he's playing 2-5 now?" I say good for him, because he's humbled himself and gone back to build his bankroll again. And also, you don't know, maybe he spent most of his net worth on a house and now he's grinding back from zero. We don't know why somebody's there. Maybe he's got a bankroll challenge of his own. You don't know why somebody's playing small, and we shouldn't be playing poker for our ego and for the respect of other people. We play for money. So
exactly right. Yeah,
that's what it's all about. So very good, man. Thanks for sharing the hand, and thanks as always for being so transparent about how poorly you played it. And
and thanks for being so honest to tell me that I played it poorly. And hopefully, maybe next month I'll wave at you as I drive by when I go to New Jersey. We'll see.
Yeah, I hope to see you out there, man. So definitely check out Derek. Did you say you're playing every day? Are you twitching more often now? What's happening?
Yeah, I'm streaming every day this month at various times. Sometimes it's during the day, sometimes it's late at night. But every day this month, I'm streaming some form of poker.
Even if it's
although today I did slot machines, which was kind of fun actually. But most days it's poker. So yeah, twitch.tv/Killingbird. Come on over and hang out.
Very cool. So follow him on twitch.tv/Killingbird. So for Derek Tenbush and for everyone here at Tournament Poker Edge, I'm Clayton Fletcher. Thank you so much for listening.
I wanna hold them like they do in Texas, please. Fold them, let them hit me, raise it, baby, stay with me. Lock in intuition, play the cards with babes to start. And after she's been hooked, I'll play the one that's on her heart. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'll get her heart, show her what I got. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'll get her heart, show her what I got. Can't read mine, no she can't read a mile. Poker face, she's got to love nobody. Can't read mine, no she can't read a mile. Poker face, she's got to love nobody. Poker face, poker face. Poker face, poker face. I wanna roll with her, a hard pair we will be. While little gambling is fun when you're with me. I love it. Russian roulette is not the same without a gun. And baby, when it's love, it's not rough, it isn't fun. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'll get her heart, show her what I got. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'll get her heart, show her what I got. Can't read mine, no she can't read a mile. Poker face, she's got to love nobody. Can't read mine, no she can't read a mile. Poker face, she's got to love nobody. Poker face, poker face. Poker face, poker face. Can't read mine, no she can't read a mile. Poker face, she's got to love nobody. Can't read mine, no she can't read a mile. Poker face.